The NHL Entry Draft is normally, in most circumstances, an expansion team's best friend. The Seattle Kraken have themselves their future number one center-to-be in Matty Beniers because they took him, where? Second overall in the 2021 NHL Entry Draft. You have yourselves what is a belief that new, young NHL teams, heck, not even just new teams, but like the teams that are rebuilding, you build through the draft. And for the Vegas Golden Knights, they've kind of gone out there and smacked that reputation out of our hands into the dirt, and they stomped on it after spitting on it countless times too. The Vegas Golden Knights and the NHL Entry Draft's first round, these two, they don't like each other. They don't spend any time together, and you rarely see them actually accomplish anything. And when they do, it's usually thrown out the window after a few years. Let's talk today about the Vegas Golden Knights and their first round draft picks, because they're a young team, right? They entered the NHL in 2017, 2018, and with their first draft being 4 seasons ago in 2017, it's kind of interesting to take a look at where all of their first-round picks have gone, and just how well, I guess you could say, that's boded for their team. So, before we get into any of that, I will say this right off the bat, Vegas has been phenomenal. For an expansion team to make the finals in their first season, and to have the sustained amount of success that they have, it is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most impressive things that I personally am ever going to see in my lifetime. This is the most impressive expansion team, whatever? I don't know if that's a fact or whatever, but still, making the finals, making the semifinals 3 out of the 4 times you exist as a franchise, that's a 75% expectancy rate of making the gosh darn 4th round every year. That's extraordinarily high. But it comes at a price. And the price that the Vegas Golden Knights have paid has been their prospect pool. Sure, they have some prospects who are valuable, and sure, they have some guys that are gonna crack this team soon, but when it comes to the guys at the top of the food chain, the top 30, top 31, top 32 picks in the entry drafts, there isn't really a lot to talk about. So, let's go through the years and talk about the Vegas Golden Knights and their first-round picks, starting with their very first NHL entry draft. In 2017, they had themselves 3 first-round picks. They had their own, they had Winnipeg's, and they had the Islanders. The Winnipeg one was acquired in what was the Chris Thorburn exchange, and the Islanders had themselves the Jean-François Berube and Grabowski-Bischoff thing. It was kind of weird. Lo and behold, there were 3 picks that the Vegas Golden Knights had in this draft. 6th overall, they went with a guy named Cody Glass, and Cody Glass, for all intents and purposes, was supposed to be a lot better, a lot sooner than what he showed off with the Vegas Golden Knights. And sure, he does have himself an NHL future. He's a big-bodied center who's got some capable two-way game, but he got traded over to Nashville, and now he's playing in Milwaukee in the AHL. He's a point per game in the AHL, so good for him. But AHL producing was never really a problem for Cody Glass. It's just everything at the highest level was not really there just yet. He's 22 years old, 6'2", 185, and he has himself a career's worth of time ahead of him, but compared to the guys that were in this range, I mean, you have the Cale Makars, you have the Elias Petterssons, you have the guys taken after, like Michael Rasmussen and Gabe Vilardi and Martin Necas. It is kind of a sting for a guy who went this high, but at least the Vegas Golden Knights traded him away for Nolan Patrick, who was also in this draft, but we're not going to talk about that here today, aren't we? He's been on the IR. Going over to the second Vegas Golden Knights pick in the 2017 first round, you have yourselves Nick Suzuki, taken, 13th overall? He was taken as the very first non-Vegas pick selected by Vegas, because this wasn't Vegas's own draft pick, this was the Winnipeg pick. And coming out of the OHL, Suzuki was seen as this dynamic, playmaking, small-ish kind of center who really had himself a sustainable scoring profile. Now, the thing with Suzuki is that as his time went on in the OHL, he actually had a really big improvement in other areas of his game. Not just the offense and the flashy playmaking and the skills, but the two-way responsibility as well. This guy learned how to play in his own zone, he learned how to backcheck, and he learned how to be even a penalty killing force sometimes too. The problem is that we never actually saw Suzuki display these traits with Vegas, because a few years after the draft pick was made, the Vegas Golden Knights traded Nick Suzuki alongside of Tomas Tatar, and we'll get to Tomas freaking Tatar a little bit later, and another draft pick that eventually was traded down to become Mattias Norlinder to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Max Pacioretty. Pacioretty this season is not really doing anything because he's on the IR, but Pacioretty is still a very capable, very solid, and just an overall point-per-game-ish kind of guy the past few seasons he has had with Vegas. Now, it has been a while since that trade, and Suzuki really did explode after the trade was made, so to be fair for the Vegas Golden Knights, even though they did have themselves a guy in the system that became what is Nick Suzuki today, it's not like back then they knew he would be this good this quickly. Suzuki is the best player on the Montreal Canadiens point production-wise. He is at 12 points in 14 games played. The lead he has at the time of recording this audio over Tyler Toffoli is quite massive. Going over onto the third pick of the first round for the Vegas Golden Knights, it's a guy we talked about on the channel recently, Erik Brannstrom. This guy was acquired at the 15th overall spot, and he was seen by many as this very sneakily offensively capable Swedish defenseman out of the SHL. And to be fair, he had a really good profile in the J20 Super Elite, and he was playing SHL minutes. And as his career went on, his time in the AHL was significant as well, especially as a rookie. But alas, like everybody else we had mentioned so far, he got traded too. A package including Erik Brannstrom was sent over to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for Mark Stone. And Stone, just like Pacioretty, hasn't done anything this season because he has been injured, but still, you know how good Mark Stone is, you know how good Pacioretty is. These guys, when they're in the lineup, they're great. However, they are a bit older, and that should be taken into consideration because the Vegas Golden Knights, what they were looking for out of Brannstrom and Glass and Suzuki right away, wasn't really aligning with what they wanted short term, which is, well, pretty much to win the cup. You see this pattern continue in the next few seasons because in 2018, guess what? The Vegas Golden Knights did not have their first round pick because they traded this first round pick plus a second plus a third to the Detroit Red Wings for Tomas Tatar. This trade was actually done right before the 2017 draft. And Tomas Tatar did not really work out well at all, in the slightest for this team. He got scratched in the playoff run, he didn't play even though they went to the finals, and then they just traded him away in that Max Pacioretty, Nick Suzuki deal because, man, Tatar's not great, we need a guy to replace him on wing that's going to be better, why not trade him in a first rounder in Nick Suzuki for Max Pacioretty? Next up, in 2019, the Vegas Golden Knights' first-round pick was 17th overall, and with this pick, the Vegas Golden Knights selected out of the WHL's Winnipeg and Kootenay Ice system, Peyton Krebs, who, to his credit, probably should not have been available this late into the draft. It was injuries, it was the fact that he's a little bit small, it was the fact that he couldn't really walk up onto the stage properly that somewhat set him back in this year, but Peyton Krebs, to me, was a top 10 talent that was available so late for the Vegas Golden Knights to just snag up and take into their system. And what? They have him in their system for a few years. He still dominates the WHL after his surgery and recovery. He goes to the AHL last season, and he does well there. He's a point per game with the Henderson Silver Knights. He gets 5 points in 2 games this year with the Henderson Silver Knights, and then, boom, he gets traded to Buffalo for Jack Eichel. Oh, man. At least you have Peyton Krebs, who is now going to be playing with Dylan Cousins long-term. These two were 2 of the 3 star-studded WHLers in the 2019 draft selection, the other one being Kirby Dach, who was taken 3rd overall by the Blackhawks. But for Peyton Krebs, I honestly have been a lot more optimistic for Krebs just because of his work ethic and his skills. But of course, he is only, 20 years old right now, so we're going to have to wait and see how he plays out with the Buffalo Sabres. Right now for Rochester, he is at 0 points in 1 game played. But I mean, it's only 1 game played with a brand new team. I don't really care that he's gone out there with 0 points. But then you go into the future, the next few picks right here. In 2020, the Vegas Golden Knights had their first, and they used it on Brisson out of the University of Michigan system. And then in 21, you had yourself Zach Dean out of the QMJHL. These 2 guys have... they've been guys that are in the system. I like Zach Dean. I think he has himself a pretty good skill set. I do also like Brisson and what he is doing for Michigan. But you go further into the future and you see what happened in 2022, guess what? That first-round pick is not there either because it was traded for Jack Eichel. So when you go and you look at the overall numbers, I guess, of the Vegas Golden Knights and their first-round pick history. In 2017, Cody Glass traded, Nick Suzuki traded, Erik Brannstrom traded. In 2018, that pick was not even used by Vegas, it was traded for Tatar. In 2019, Peyton Krebs, he got traded. Brisson is still here, Zach Dean is still here, and in 2022, you traded it for Eichel. In the first 8 first-round picks that you have, you only really used 2 of them. The rest are all traded away and used up on guys that you eventually trade away too. Pretty interesting, eh? Talk to me in the comments if you're a Vegas fan. What are your opinions on your drafting habits and the way you use these draft picks? I hope you enjoyed this Trolls 99. And bye.